Hello, Culture Matters podcast. We're back again with more culture content. Here's a quote just for this episode. Try not to become a man of success, but rather try to become a man of value. Albert Einstein. Culture topic today is balancing personal relationships and business. I don't think it's a question of balance. I think it's a question of value. Well, what is value? Value is vision, value is attention, value is intention, value is the plan, value is the sacrifice associated with the plan, value is knowledge, right? Is there something that I know or you know that can create, that can construct something that is value add or valuable to another or others? It's vision, it's aim, it's intention, it's attention, right? You could have an intention to do something, but not the effort behind it, the engagement for it to mean something, for its value is integrity. It's the thought, our thoughts and our words and our actions all line up. For value to be created, we have to come from a place of integrity. We have to be integrated. So if we're talking about balancing personal relationships and business, this conversation around balance, what it actually represents is a valuing personal relationships and business. And in what order? It's there will be the conditions of our environment are going to influence what we value, what we must value. For example, in the beginning of a business, there, what do we actually have? We have our vision, we have our knowledge, we have our intention, we have our energy, we have, we may or may not have resources, and we have resourcefulness. We may or may not have resources. A founded business that has capital investment from the get-go can hire more people, invest into can invest into marketing and branding initiatives. A startup without resources, without investment, lacks the ability to just hire more people to invest in marketing and branding. There's going to be uh, there's going to be a greater call on the personal responsibility of the founder as a consequence of the lack of resources. What do they have? They have time and space. Now, we all have the same amount of hours in a day, but based on what we value, we use those hours differently. Based on what we know, based on how the speed of accuracy and the speed of activity, which is a very personal quality, that influences how much can get done within that same amount of time. That also has a relationship with what we know. Someone, the startup that doesn't have the investment, that doesn't have the resources, it's going to call implicitly, it's going to be held to account implicitly at a greater amount outside of personal responsibility of the time and space, of the intention, of the attention of its founder. So there, in in for the argument's sake, there's going to be perceivable less balance if that business is going to stay in business, not only succeed, but stay in business. So I just want to, and let's say the business that has the capital, that has investment to hire people, that has investment to marketing and branding, there's less accountability as a condition of the environment on that founder. They may put in less time. And that may actually have a negative impact, an inverse relationship on their thoughtfulness, on their innovation, on their ability to act and react. That could actually have a backwards effect on the culture and lower the productivity and decrease the likelihood of success. Because, as Rick Dorn has said on the Culture Runners podcast, value creates money, but money doesn't necessarily create value. No, why is that? Because the spirit of the individual is what supercharges other individuals' spirit, right? We have these two scenarios. One is a well capitalized startup, and one is a not well capitalized startup. The not well capitalized startup has the advantage of accountability from a lack. There are no options. Burn the boats. We have to be resourceful. We have to be sharp. We have to be um, moving as fast as possible. We have to be honest with one another. We don't have time for ego. We don't have time for title. We don't have time for bravado. The capitalized business implicitly less accountability based on the character makeup of the individuals. It could have more time for title worship, for ego, for bureaucracy, for political movement, for that perception we have plenty of time or we have plenty of resources. There's less push, you know, even so there's value. Value has a relationship with the conditions of our environment. Accountability and responsibility and interplay. Balance is very much a conversation of value. And what we value is what we pay attention to. What we pay attention to challenges our values. What do we actually know that we think we know? What do we not know that we think we know? What do we what do we think we don't know that we do? What do we know we don't know? How do you know you don't know something if you don't know it enough to not know it? I guess that's more of the spirit of humility and curiosity. Sacrifice, knowledge, exchange. But if we're talking about balancing personal relationships in business, is it a conversation of the quality of the conversation when you have it? Is it a conversation of how often you have it? I just don't think the balance piece is the right way to look at it. Like, so here's a definition of balance: an even distribution of weight enabling someone or something to remain upright and steady. She lost her balance before falling. Similar: stability, equilibrium, steadiness, footing. The opposite is instability. Two, condition in which different elements are equal or in the correct proportions. So, fairness, justice, impartiality, egalitarianism, equal opportunity, parity, equity, equilibrium, evenness, symmetry, equipoise, correspondence, uniformity, equality, equivalence, similarity, levelness, parallelism, comparability. The opposite is imbalance. Okay, obviously. Verb, so those were nouns. Verb, keep or put something in a steady position so that it does not fall. So this is the thing. This is interesting. Business, if we're talking in a business context, business does and will fall because there are aspects of business outside of us. We have an ability to respond, to relate to the outside environment, to relate to the world. Right now, as I'm recording this, the markets are in absolute turmoil based on the CEO of the company, the president of the country deciding to make to charge all many parties outside of the country a fee for doing business with this company, this country. And it's that activity is leading to a fall in the markets, to a lesser belief in the markets to be in balance, to be stable based on a decision of one party. Now that's having an impact, a downward impact on us, whether we realize or not, on you, on me, on everyone. That will lead to choices, to the ability to respond based on awareness and education and our aim, our vision, our strategy, our mission, our values. We are responsible for how we relate to what's known and what's unknown. We are responsible for that. And we are able to respond on a spectrum of awareness that is influenced by our knowledge, that is influenced by our character, that is influenced by our environment. The people, so this goes to the personal relationships piece, the people that actually make up our life. What are the relationships like that we have with our family, with our spouse, with our community, with our neighbor, with our friend group, with our career, with our customers, with our partners, with our country, and so on? What do those relationships actually look like? Are they proactive and meaningful, or are they reactive and resentful? Balancing personal relationships and business is about uh, understanding what we value. And understanding what we value is looking at what we do. And looking at what we do is influenced by what we don't do. And what we do and what we don't do is influenced by who are in our life. But it's a question of value, what we value and what we don't value and what our values are. So to keep or put something in steady position so it does not fall. This is why I think the balance conversation is so confusing to people, is that life is in change, it's in flux, it is up and down. In the up periods, we have to be humble and be aware of our pride and remember to listen. In the down periods, we have to be confident and courageous, and we need pride, we need identity to navigate things that are out of our control. The ups and downs are, we're less responsible for the ups than we think we are, and we're more responsible for the downs than we think we should be. We need to be more responsible for the downs than we think we should be, and we are less responsible for the ups than we think we are. But life is up and down, and at least as far as Peterson's work goes, the meaning is found in how we relate to both. But when we have a fall, when there's instability, based on how we reorient ourselves, there can be room for growth, room for meaning, room for reintegration. And we need a new aim. We need a new vision. We need a new plan. We need to be able to communicate that plan. And to do that, we have to be able to think, and reading and writing and speaking helps us think, helps us articulate ourselves to others, helps us lead when times are tough and many are looking for someone and or something or both to follow. Balance personal relationships comes down to what we value, and there will be ebbs and flows, and there will be blind spots, and there's so much out of our ability to feel that we control, because we actually can't. We can feel as though we're in control relative to our ability to respond to things out of our control and even out of our influence, outside of just showing up and doing the best we can to solve the problems of everyday life as they arise. I guess if I was going to say in the beginning of a business, a lack of resources is going to lead to a massive imbalance. An abundance of resources in theory, could lead to the opportunity of balance. But then what is the consequence of that balance on the actual success of the idea? And that is likely uh, that is likely going to have a negative impact because there will be someone, if you want the leadership position, you want to be at the top of the pyramid, there will always be someone that wants that seat that's willing to do more and even do anything to take it. So if you've learned anything from listening to these monologues, if you stop paying attention and you aren't sacrificing as much or more as others, and you don't know enough and are unable to ask enough of the people from knowing enough to ask the best question. You might not know everything, but you need to know enough to ask the best questions from the various subject matter experts in your flock to curate value, to curate exchange of ideas and emotions and move people into activity, proactivity, and responsibility so that success can be created. So balancing personal relationships and business is about valuing. Do you value that? It's like, oh, you haven't talked to those people in a long time. Well, do you value them? No, you don't. You don't value them in relation to what? Well, you don't value them as much as you value the success of your business. You don't value them as much as you value your face on a magazine. You don't value. So it's a question of value. And maybe you don't value because you haven't been listening or you don't feel you've been listened to. There's a disconnect. Business in and of itself disconnects us from from a lot of things. It comes with great sacrifice, and it's something to be very, very aware and very careful of when you're starting and running your business, because the likelihood it's going to create an imbalance and instability as a consequence of the sacrifice that it's asked of us. And but I think the big takeaway is that instability and imbalance is a component or a part of the cyclicality of life. Here's one more definition: offset or compare the value of one thing with another. Interesting. So this is what I was intuiting here. Weigh, weigh up, compare, evaluate, consider, assess, appraise, estimate. So there is a relationship between value and balance. The best definition of balance can be defined as state of equilibrium, equipoise, where opposing forces or elements are in equal or proper amounts, or where different things are given equal importance. If that's going to happen, that's going to happen for a brief moment. It's like we've succeeded, we hit our goal. There's balance for a brief moment, and then imbalance occurs again because now we need a new goal, a new vision, a new plan, a new aim. We're challenged for another sacrifice, and we've got to keep the song going, keep the show going, or the music is going to stop, and we're all going to pay. Share this with a friend. Leave us a review in the Culture Matters podcast. We will see you next time.